Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or listening through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered in my over 46 years of doing therapy. And I'm grateful to be able to announce, as always, that these tools are available absolutely free at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the red and white bullseye, or the link in the upper left-hand corner of most pages that says Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? That chapter of that book is a narrative description of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet, and it's a tool that I've been using for over 17 years to actively improve the quality of my life, to manage my emotions, to be able to use any negative emotional state as an alarm system to wake me up to the fact that there's something amiss inside my thought process, that there's something in the way I'm constructing a reality, a picture in my mind of what's going on that's not accurate. And if I construct that realization and I use those tools, if I take a deep breath, turn the focus inside, ask myself, how am I creating this emotion? And then I get some sense of calm and centeredness, and if that hasn't completely dissipated, then I pick up a tool like the Reality Management Worksheet, and I fill out the form and get very clear to myself how I'm creating a picture based on my thoughts and my emotions of the world around me and the people around me that's less than accurate. And once I do that, I open the doorway to restore myself to more accurate perception, and I see things more clearly, and then whatever choices, whatever decisions I make, they tend to have a far more positive set of consequences. I'm far more comfortable with the results of my choices whenever I make a decision or a choice based on a calm, focused, centered approach to life. And I have restored myself to that natural state of compassion, humility, balance. And so that's what we're here to support people in doing. If you go to that website, you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. You can click on a link and simply download the PDF file of that worksheet process, print it off and use it as often as you'd like. You can also go to your app store and type in the 3 words, Heartland, Aramaic, Forgiveness. And it's 3 words. Heartland is all one word, Heartland, Aramaic, Aramaic. And as you start typing the word forgiveness, before you're done, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it'll let you download a completely free and private app that has the Reality Management Worksheet process in it, an abbreviated version of that process, and a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we hope you do that soon and often. And if you do that and either apply the tool or have difficulty applying the tool, that's why we're here in our current format, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. Give us a call. Our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And when you call that number, if you press 1, it will put a little question mark by your phone number, and I'll announce you by your area code, and we can have a conversation. We're currently in our 6th day of the new year, as the calendar goes here in America. And as such, we've made the commitment to read a Course in Miracles lesson each day and discuss them, and then talk a little bit about the material, the lesson itself, and the principles underlying it. And so today's lesson being on the 6th day, is a direct follow-up to yesterday's lesson. Yesterday's lesson was, I'm never upset for the reason I think. And today's lesson is, I am upset because I see something that is not there. This is the kind of writing in A Course in Miracles that leaves many people frustrated. The background of this is the knowledge that we create our own perceptions. But in our culture, we're basically taught that perception is just passive. Wherever I am, I open my eyes and I get a complete download of whatever's there, and I'm just recording reality with my perception. Whereas the scientists who study this know without any doubt that my process of perception is highly, highly active, and that my perception does not record a reality. My perception constructs a reality. It's based on my beliefs, my past experience. It's based on past traumas. And so this statement, I am upset because I see something that is not there, might be more accurately stated, I'm upset because my mind shows me a picture that it made up and tries to make me believe it's about the outside world. I am upset because I see something in my mind, in the images my mind is creating that we call my perception, that is not accurate. It's not happening in the actual world. The only place in the world it's happening in this moment, whenever I have upset, the reality, the pictures my mind is showing me, the only place in the world that's actually happening is inside my mind, whenever I'm upset. So the lesson goes on to say, the exercises with this idea are very similar to the preceding ones. Again, it's necessary to name both the form of upset, anger, fear, worry, depression, and so on, and the perceived source, very specifically for any application of the idea. For example, I'm angry at Pat because I see something that is not there. I am worried about my job because I see something that is not there. Today's idea is useful for application to anything that seems to upset you, and can profitably be used throughout the day for that very purpose. However, the 3 or 4 practice periods which are required should be preceded by a minute or 2 of mind searching. As before, just notice your thoughts. And then the application of this idea to each upsetting thought that is uncovered in your search. So I sit, I take a breath, and I just notice, what am I thinking right now? Well, I seem pretty content, although there is this meeting tomorrow that I'm somewhat worried about. Okay, I can apply the thought. I am worried about this meeting tomorrow because I see something that is not there. Again, if you resist applying the idea to some upsetting thoughts more than others, remind yourself of the 2 cautions stated in the previous lesson. Number 1, caution. There are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. There are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. And the second caution is, I cannot keep this form of upset and let go of others. For purposes of these exercises, then, I will regard every upset as the same. Whether one seems bigger or smaller to me, I will regard them as all the same for the purpose of these exercises. And again, these exercises are intended to be done in a relaxed, leisurely way. If I begin to put pressure on myself, if I begin to beat myself up because I'm not doing it right or I'm worried about doing it right, that would be a wonderful thing for me to step back, take a breath, and then apply the Reality Management Worksheet to. any time I have a negative thought about myself or someone else, or a negative emotion in my mind, in my awareness, I can instantly know three things. The first thing I can know is this negative thought or negative emotion is based in a falsehood. It's a lie. The second thing I can know is this is an old tape playing. It's not about what's going on in the present moment. As the previous lesson said, I'm never upset for the reason I think I am. And the third thing I can know if I have a negative thought about myself or somebody else or a negative emotion is if I take an action from that negativity, I'm simply going to make my situation worse. So these lessons, again, the purpose of them is not to make me better, is not to give me more value, is not to absolve me of sin. These lessons are here to help me learn to question the false conditioning of my family and my culture, and to begin to learn to question and live more in that direct observation for the sole goal of clarifying my perception, being able to move to a place where my process of perception is showing me more and more accurate pictures, increasingly accurate pictures of the world as the Creator created it, of the actuality of life, of my perfect safety, of my being of brilliance and light as it matches the being of brilliance and light of every other person I encounter in this journey we call life. That's what this is about, to restore or to introduce that what Michael Ryce refers to as the spiritual faculty of true perception, true with a capital T. And if I'm willing to engage these exercises, and I'm willing to give up, as we practice in every reality management worksheet, there's a part of the worksheet that says, I cancel my need to be right. I cancel whatever goal my mind is showing me, that my mind says this and this and this has to happen in order for you to feel safe, Tim, or in order for you to be happy, or in order for you to give up your depression, etc. If I'm willing to cancel whatever that goal is, if I'm willing to cancel my need to be right, if I'm willing to be taught by life in the moment, my life can improve by leaps and bounds, day in and day out, as mine has over the past 17 years of applying these tools. And that's the purpose of the Reality Management Worksheet and the host of other tools that are available at whyagain.org. And it's also the purpose of the Course in Miracles lessons, to help me move into accurate perception of life. We mention from time to time that the Reality Management Worksheet is just one of a host of tools that are available at whyagain.org. If you go to whyagain.org and click on the red and white bullseye, it takes you to the page that we just mentioned where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book, and you can get access to the worksheet process, and you can get access to the MP3 files of a whole host of shows that we've done over the past 9.5 years. But if you keep scrolling down, you can see a list of other worksheets. And those worksheets include the Codependence to Interdependence worksheet, various forms of the tool, the commitment, an exercise about the love exchange and a description of that tool, the responsibility communication tool, the mind goal management worksheet that comes from the lecture Dr. Ryce gives titled Getting the Stress You Need, a list of potential mind shifters that you can use for targeted journaling, a Mind Shifters list that comes from the Women Healing Women intensive format that Jeannie Ryce created. There's a Power Person worksheet. There's a Purpose worksheet. Comes from the lecture Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment. There's a 3 Early Memories of Conflict worksheet. There's a release exercise for emotional attachment. So there are a host of tools that can be applied systematically or randomly as your interest arises to help you restore yourself to calm. And it's only from calm that I can ever hope to achieve true perception, an accurate perception of the world the way the Creator created it, without all of the trauma, without all the baggage and drama that each of us brings into each life situation. And we are hopeful that by stepping through these Course in Miracles lessons and then talking about how they relate to these tools, we can assist people in making this shift towards true perception. There's a book by Pam Grout called The Course in Miracles Experiment. And it also goes through the Course lessons. And her 6th chapter talks about, it's titled Wonder Woman's True Superpower. Then she quotes Gail Simone, who said, "If you need to stop an asteroid, call Superman. If you need to solve a mystery, call Batman. But if you need to end a war, call Wonder Woman." Gail Simone. Then Pam Grout writes, "Anyone who's ever attended one of my workshops knows I love Wonder Woman. I have t-shirts, action figures, even underwear. And while I applaud Gal Gadot's cinematic portrayal of our first female superhero, I wasn't down with all the violence. A true change maker would never perpetuate the, quote, old way, close quotes. A true change maker would see that slaying bad guys just keeps the crazy going. I will never be truly free until I move beyond the mistaken belief that bad guys exist," which is precisely the message in Lesson 6 from A Course in Miracles. I am upset because I see something that is not there. Sure, I can work to overcome all the, quote, evils, close quote, and the, quote, bad guys, close quotes, and the, quote, problems, close quotes. Or I can retrain my mind to see a different reality. Don't get me wrong, I still love, love, love Wonder Woman. I will continue to stand in the Wonder Woman pose, and I will remind myself 3 times today, according to my workbook lesson in Course in Miracles, that just like the movies aren't real, all those upsets I think I see are nothing but holograms that will radically change, not by fighting them, not by poking them with spears in their guts, but when I train my mind to see them differently. So that's what Pam Grout says about Lesson 6. I am upset because I see something that is not there. Said another way, I am upset because my mind is showing me distorted perceptions that do not match the actuality of what the Creator has created. And what the Creator has created for me to be, what the Creator has created for each of the beings of brilliance and light that are on this journey of life with me. If I am seeing their true essence, if I'm seeing from my true essence, there will not be any upset. So when I have upset, I can use that as an alarm to wake me up to the fact that something has gone amiss in my perceptual process. So our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And if you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. We'll entertain your comments or questions, and we'll do our best to sit with you in the moment to discover what wants to be shared. 563-999-3581. I was having another moment this morning as I was listening to the Course in Miracles Made Easy book by Alan Cohen, and it just happened to fall on the lesson about chapter 7. Isn't that special? And this is a chapter where Alan Cohen makes it so perfectly clear that when A Course in Miracles is talking about special relationships and the problem with special relationships, the definition is almost exactly the same as Dr. Michael Ryce's definition of a codependent relationship. So special relationships, as Course in Miracles talks about them, is exactly the way Dr. Michael Ryce talks about a codependent relationship, which is this. When I think or speak as though someone outside of me is responsible for my emotions, in that moment, I've created a codependent relationship. So if I can become aware of my thoughts, if I can watch the process that floods through the energy field that I call my mind, and if I can be willing to identify and then work with any thought, any speech that indicates, I think you made me angry, you're scaring me, that was tragic, that's overwhelming, any thought that indicates a belief that my emotions are being created by people or things outside of me, in that moment, I've created what Michael Ryce would call a codependent relationship and what Course in Miracles would call a special relationship. And so as that goes, I can have a special relationship with my car. I can have the false belief that I'm only happy because I finally got the fancy car I wanted. And the problem with that is, whether it's a person or a car or a job, the problem of hinging or hitching my happiness to that outside person, object, or event is that as soon as it changes, my happiness goes away. And so then I either have to scramble to fight to protect it at all costs, and or I'm living in constant fear that I'm going to have it taken from me, that I'm going to lose this very fragile state of mind that I call happiness. And what we're here to help every one of us do in a growing sense, day in and day out, is learn to rest in your perfect safety, in your wholeness, in your holiness. And when that happens more and more through the application of these tools, through the waking up to the false belief systems that we've downloaded because of past traumas and family events, when that happens and we get to see our perfect safety and feel it fully in our bones and live from it, life begins to be transformed. Last night we had a Tuesday support group and we began going through, yet again, Michael Singer's online course, Living from a Place of Surrender. And in that work, he talks about the primary core question for every deep, truly spiritual practice is, who are you? He says when people come up to him and say, I want you to know that I meditate, he says, I don't care that you meditate. I care who is meditating. Who are you? What is your true nature? And often when people get asked that question in the early stages of this kind of work, they say, well, I'm Tim. And then the teacher will say, oh, so you're a collection of letters? That's all you are? Well, no. And often the next thing people will say is, well, I'm my body. I'm this age, and I'm this shape, and I'm this proficient in kung fu or whatever. And then the master, the teacher, will ask again, oh, so all you are is this physical prowess? Well, no. And then often they'll jump to, well, here's what I do for a living. I have this degree, and I have this business that I run. Or, oh, so that's all you are, is a business owner? And the push is to actively question at deeper and deeper levels, to realize that who you are, what you are, is the purity of awareness. You are not your thoughts, and you are not your body. You are that which can be aware of your thoughts and can be aware of the body. But you clearly are not just your body. And you clearly are not your thoughts, because your thoughts change like the wind. And it's in that process of sitting with the deeper and deeper exploration of questions like, who am I? What am I? Who is doing the looking through my eyes? Who is it? What is it that's creating this thing that we call my perception of the world? And it's through sitting with that level of questioning that we come to see, to experience something very, very different. And eventually, it's like Gangaji pointed out to us in one of her talks, if I will sit patiently, quietly, watching everything that comes and goes, if I'll sit watching my thoughts and my physical sensations and my emotions, and just watch how they come and go. If I do that long enough, eventually I'm going to be introduced to that which never comes and goes, which is always just there, constantly there. That is the truth of who you are. You are that which never changes. You are the essence or the mind energy that had the experience of life that you had when you were 10 years old, in a body that looks tremendously different from how your body looks today. But the essence of who you are, the memory of yourself being there, seems the same. So since the body has changed dramatically since you were 10, you can't be your body. Since your thoughts change dramatically moment to moment, sometimes second to second, be your thoughts. There has to be something that is more consistent, that seems to have been there in you all your life. That's your essence. And these tools, whether it's the Reality Management Worksheet process or a session of targeted journaling that Michael Ryce calls the Mind Shifter tool, or a lecture series like Michael Singer walks us through, they're all designed to help us learn to question, learn to observe, and learn to become more and more actively familiar with our true nature. And as the Course in Miracles will tell us, what's needed is removing everything that's not true from this process of perception that we've been trained into. That's all. We don't have to build a loving self. We don't have to build a being of brilliance and light. We already are that. All that's needed is for us to find the way to identify and then actively remove everything that's less than that, everything that would block our awareness, our having direct experiential awareness of that true self. So Michael Singer was talking last night about how the beginning of exploring this question, who are you, comes from recognizing that it's possible, it happens, fortunately or unfortunately, to people on a regular basis, that they lose a hand or they lose a foot or they lose a toe or they lose an arm or a leg or they lose the use of it if they become paraplegic or quadriplegic. But the person remains. So who is it that remains? What is it that remains? Hopefully, that's an interesting set of questions for you, because it's only through the active process of sitting in those questions that one begins to get introduced to one's true self. Who are you? What are you? Michael Singer talks about there's this energy field, there's this center of energy that we call the human mind. And in that human mind, what we can become aware of is the impressions that hit our senses. So these sights and sounds and physical sensations that come into this energy field from the outside. That's one thing that's in there in our mind. Another thing that's in there in our mind is our thoughts, all of those impressions that come in from the senses. So we have two things going on. We have actual input coming in from the outside world, sights, sounds, physical sensations, smells, tastes, etc. And then we have our thought impressions about them. And those thought impressions are all conditioned thought processes. They're all related to whatever language we were taught when we were formulating awareness in our family and our culture. It's all conditioned by the culture we were raised in. All of those beliefs about whether or not it's good to wear clothes or bad to wear clothes or good to have sex or bad to have sex or good to eat sugar or bad to eat sugar, or all of that stuff has been programmed into us. And that's that floating in our mind, in this energy field we call our mind, as thought. And then the third thing that's there are these emotions that get generated from those thoughts and the interaction between the thoughts, the beliefs, and the stimulation from the outside, from the senses. And so if we can learn to practice stepping back into observer mode, we can get introduced to this very active process of perception, and we can start to observe that we are not our thoughts, and we are not our reactions to the things of the world. And it's perfectly okay for us to watch them passively without attaching belief or a thought of need to any of it. And the more we do that, Michael Singer's very well convinced that the major teachers he's had throughout his life and his life of meditating and practicing this observation, we will get introduced to our true self, which is a blissful experience. And if you're willing to question, if you're willing to let your emotional energy system be your guidance system. If you're willing to question any conditioning you've had from your family or your culture that trains you to think that when you get angry or when you get irritated or when you get anxious or you get confused, that means something's wrong in the world outside of you, and you either need to chase after it and beat it up or run away from it or bribe it or seduce it or threaten it to change the outside event or person. If you can question that process and question, what would it be like if every time I had a negative emotional response, I assumed it was my alarm system telling me, Tim, there's something wrong with the way you're looking at the world. And then I step into the use of tools. And then I step back and observe and ask to be taught by the moment, rather than assuming that my meager intelligence knows better than the flow of life what's supposed to be happening in this moment. And it's an extraordinarily humbling process, or at least it was for me when I began doing this kind of work, because I had to give up my need to be right. I had to give up my passion for knowing everything. I had to step into the awareness that the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. Think about that paradox. The more I learn about what life is and relationships are and how the mind-body energy system works and thoughts are related to emotions and who's causing my emotions and upsets, the more I learn about that, the more I realize how little I actually know. And this is why the great teachers say over and over again, he who says he knows doesn't know. She who says she doesn't know, she's onto something. I love the line that I heard first from Brene Brown in her article she wrote about her and her husband, where they've saved their relationship numerous times because when they start to get upset and they catch it and they realize they're upset, they say, okay, the story I'm telling myself now is, and then they unfold whatever their thoughts and emotions are. So they take 100% responsibility for creating the thought, for creating the emotions, for creating the perception of events, and they share it with their partner with the opening line that says, I know I'm only telling myself a story, and that's what's creating my upset. So let me share with you the story I'm telling myself. And then you can either say, oh, that's interesting, and walk away, or you can say, well, that wasn't my perception of the event, and share your story. So communication becomes possible only after I own 100% responsibility for every experience I'm creating in the moment. Communication is impossible until that happens. Blame is possible, frustration is possible, stuckness is possible, but active, effective communication is not possible until I understand that the actuality of my existence is that I have never experienced an emotion that I did not have a hand in creating. In the Way of Mastery, it says it right on the 5th page, only 5 pages into this book, and it says, the first step in awakening is to allow the mind this axiom of truth. Nothing that I experience is caused by anything outside of me. I experience only the effects of my own choice. And examples of this abound in our lives. We aren't taught to believe them. We aren't taught to look for them. But I was reminded of it the other day in a group I was in. on a regular basis, when we would have our Tuesday support groups, Mind Shifter support groups, that we've been running for over 16 years now, on a regular basis we would show a Dr. Michael Ryce video, or at least 1 hour of one of his videos, and there'd be 8 or 10 or 15 people in the room, and then after the hour of the video we would gather around the table and have discussion. On a regular basis, 2 or 3 people would say, I can't believe that guy is so negative. And several other people would chime in and say, I thought all he talked about was how we are love, and that's our true nature. And other people would say, well, no, that's not exactly what's going on either. We're all watching the same video, ostensibly, right? The fact is we were not watching the same video. The same video was playing on the television, but every one of us was creating an experience in our minds that was different. And it happens all day, every day. How many times have you been to a movie theater and you either loved or hated the movie, and you're walking out hearing somebody saying how they loved or hated the movie, and their position is the opposite of yours? How could that be? Because my experience of life is not created by the outside events. This is why one of the bottom line observations I have says, what happens to me and around me in my life is nowhere near as important as how I choose to interpret and respond to those events. It's the first axiom in the way of mastery. It's a core truth of our existence that we are creating our experience of life. And the good news is we've been given a guidance system that's infallible, that's flawless. If we'll learn how to read it and interpret it accurately, it can guide us to truth and happiness. And just as I said that phrase, I thought about Michael Ryce's definition of the Holy Spirit from the Kabur's manuscript and the introduction to the Beatitudes, where each Beatitude begins with the word tuvehun, and Michael Ryce likes to say, this is a 3-part word, and it means a latent neurostructure implanted in you by the Creator that's there to break off the effects of your errors in thought and guide you to truth and happiness, will be yours if you do what this next Beatitude says. Well, every one of us has access to that source of guidance and wisdom. You can call it the Holy Spirit, you can call it the Great Comforter, you can call it your emotional energy system. Whatever you call it, it doesn't matter. If you learn to interpret it correctly, if you learn to ask to be taught about your situation and life in each new moment, whenever a negative emotion comes up, if you ask to be shown rather than deciding that what you've decided or you've got the conclusion that you have that's generating a negative emotion is the truth, if you understand that a negative emotion in you or a negative thought in you is absolute evidence of an error in your perception, then you could choose to step into asking to be taught. Remember, those people who've really, really worked to learn, those bright people, most of them say, the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know. And so if I have a passion for learning, and I learn, and I realize the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know, the most obvious thing is then to be stepping into asking to be shown, asking to be taught, asking to keep growing. So every reality management worksheet process calls me to cancel my need to be right. It calls me to cancel everything my mind tells me has to happen in order for me to feel safe or happy. And it's only in the canceling of what I want and asking to be shown something new, that there is a space for learning. One of the ways I've come to talk about it is, in order for me to learn anything, I have to approach a situation with the basic observation that, number one, I do not know everything. And for me, this is just a simple observation. There's no belief in this. There's no dogma attached to it. It's just a fact. I don't know everything there is to know about genetics or space flight or calculus or cooking. I just don't know everything there is to know. So the first fundamental observation that has to be there for me to learn anything is, I observe I don't know everything. By extension, the next observation is readily available. Because I don't know everything, then whatever it is I think I know is absolutely, factually, either only partially true and perhaps even completely false. When I go into a life situation with those two perspectives, observations active in me, now there's the potential for me to learn something new. If I can jump into that with greater fervor whenever there's a negative emotional state within me, if I can dismantle the false conditioning that has me believe my negative emotions mean I'm right and the world is wrong, then I can step into that observation that I don't know everything, and therefore whatever I think I know is only partially true, perhaps even completely false, and since I'm experiencing a negative emotion, my perception's inaccurate. Now I can take a breath and settle in and ask to be taught by life, by the actuality of the world unfolding in front of me. I can step into the use of the Reality Management Worksheet, or the Mind Goal Management Sheet, or the targeted journaling that Michael calls the Mind Shifter. I can do EFT tapping and breathing. I can cancel everything I think I want and open myself to learn something new, guided by my negative emotional state, resting in the assurance that my negative emotional state is my alarm system to tell me that my perception in this moment is absolutely inaccurate. So I am never upset for the reasons I think, and I'm only upset because my mind is showing me something that is not true, that is not there. I'm seeing something that doesn't actually exist in the outside world the way my mind tells me it's existing. So our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And if you call that number and press 1, we can have a conversation. We have 10 minutes left. And I'll take a breath, and I'll announce that Michael and Jeannie let me know that they have something else that's on their docket for today, and so the second hour today will be a replay of one of the most powerful worksheet processes that Michael has ever participated in, and that was back from 2011, when the first year that we'd started the internet show, and her name was Lynn, and that'll start in about 10 minutes. And before then, we have time for a question or a comment. 563-999-3581. How can we support you today? What's on your mind? What's your response to the 50-minute monologue we just had, or the Course in Miracles lesson? Susan?
Hey,
welcome.
Hi, Dr. Tim. Hi, I came on a little late today. I've had a question, and it connects with the first question I heard you asking when I came on the show today was when somebody asks you who you are or something along those lines. And at some previous show, you had said that you would like to answer, or you would think of answering, well, I am pure love, I'm light, I am God incarnate, or whatever it is. And I'm thinking, when people ask us who we are, they really are asking, an ego is asking an ego. And we do expect a rundown of, I live in New England, or I live in where I live and what I do and my age and my this and that. And we expect that. To give that other answer, well, I don't think anybody would. So we're talking about the me. I'm talking about Awareness, the book Awareness by Anthony DeMello, who makes the distinction between the I, who is love, like the newborn, and so on, and me, who is all the pile of accoutrements that forms my presenting physical self on this plane right now. And so there's that. We answer according to a kind of level of communication that we expect that we're both on. But then I've been thinking about how I was talking to my daughter the other day, and another thing that Anthony DeMello said in his book was something like, we are all assholes. We all operate out of selfishness. We can choose to be...
He doesn't put the whole word on there. He just says, I'm an ass. And then somebody says to him, oh, no, you're wrong. I disagree. And he goes, of course I am. What do you expect from an ass?
Yes, I love it. Oh, okay, good to be corrected, because that is quite an impressive word to be putting in a book. An ass. But also, I heard it that way because I think it's true, the whole word. And I was telling my daughter that it was such a relief to read that word, that statement that we're all asses. And she said, Mom, you've always complained about sin and how sin is talked about in the church. But you just got it. That's what original sin is. We are all an ass. We're all asses. And I thought, is that true? I know I'm jumping around.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
And that's not what original sin is. Original sin was a creation of man to be manipulative. It was introduced by a person who couldn't control himself, and he needed to make excuses for the fact that he didn't have control of his impulses. And he had it voted in the council. It's not an act. It hasn't been there that long. It's not a teaching of Christ. It's not. It's a silliness. And then the other thing is, when we were talking about that in the show earlier today, I'm talking about how we're watching a series from Michael Singer. It's a series of 8 online classes that are titled Living from a Place of Surrender. And this is a question that a deep spiritual teacher would ask of any true aspirant. So we're not talking about what do you say to people when you meet them on the street and they ask who you are. That's not what we're talking about. What you're referencing is from a previous internet show. A deep spiritual teaching, to my eye and ear, is a way of mastery. I call it a kinder, gentler version of the Course in Miracles. Ostensibly, it's the same author, the same source intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
It says in the 4th lesson, let's pay attention to who you truly are. It's the same thing that Michael Ryce is driving at as a deep spiritual teaching. And so in the context of that deep spiritual teaching, this teacher wants us to understand we are not our thoughts. We are not our ego. We are not our perceived errors in behavior. Right? Imagine transcending your fear of your own survival, because as you look upon your body-mind, you're no longer identified as that body-mind. Mm-hmm. It has become a tool to be utilized by the capital L love that rests in the mind of God. What if you come to view your body as simply a tool for the extension of love in form? You live, yet no longer you, but Christ dwells as you. And then it says, this is a very real experience to be lived. It's not just a philosophy, not just a concept, and and it can never be a dogma. There is a mystical translation that occurs in the depth of the soul, which is merely a shifting of where you perceive your sense and your source of identity. A little bit later on it says, when someone next asks you, who are you? Please do not give them a name. Do not say, well, I was born in a certain town on a certain part of the planet. Don't tell them that you're a Democrat, a Republican, or a communist, or an atheist, or a Catholic. Tell them the truth. Now again, this is in the context of a deep spiritual teaching. He's not actually suggesting that every one of us should walk around and every time somebody says, oh, who are you? We give them this statement. But that we do our deep spiritual work to try and realize the truth of this next statement. Who am I? I am the extension of love in form. I have never been born, and the true I will never taste death. The true essence of who I am is infinite and eternal. The true essence of awareness as a part of the Christ mind shines forth as a sunbeam to the sun. Who I truly am is the effect of God's love, and I stand before you to extend that love to you.
That's great. I remember that, Dr. Tim. And good to have you dredge it up and bring it out, because I've always wondered, gosh, no way I'm going to say that to somebody I meet in the park when I'm walking my dog. But you're right.
That's not, the context isn't live your life speaking that out loud to people. The context is learning to realize the truth of that in the depth of your experience of yourself and your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's useful.
That is
a useful clarification of that. You know, this is not telling you, here's what you need to do. You need to say this when somebody asks you who you are. That would be giving you a set of rules and prescriptions. That would be like creating a religion. And this work is not about creating a set of rules. It's not about creating a set of beliefs or religion. It's about helping us perceive the truth of ourselves, capital T, truth, what actually is as us, as people, more accurately. And that's what A Course in Miracles lessons are aimed at doing, and that's what everything about this internet show and these tools is aimed at doing, helping me identify the false, see it as false, and remove my attachment to it and my cherishing of it, and then in that moment, all the negative effects attached to that negative thought lose their impact. They're dismantled. So this is about helping us have an experience of ourselves of being our true nature.
Good. So we'll have to tackle the ask part some other time.
Well, it's just that, you know, when I read that part of Anthony DeMello's work, that's why it's right in line with what I was just saying. I make the observation, I don't know everything there is to know. Therefore, whatever it is I think I know is either only partially true and perhaps even completely false. So I'm perfectly willing to admit I'm wrong. I'm not going to be attached to being right. I just want to be attached to rightness. The huge difference.
Yeah.
So when I hear Anthony DeMello talk about, I'm an ass, of course I'm an ass. You know, you're an ass, we're all an ass. It strikes me the same way when Guy Finley has a talk and he says, I'm a wreck. Go ahead and say it. And has everybody in the audience say, I'm a wreck. And it's okay. Because if I can't accept where I'm off the mark, where I need improvement, then I can't make corrections and improve. If I can't
It's
accept
such a
the fact
relief.
that I don't know everything, then I can't leave space to learn something new. If I'm sitting here with the belief and
It's
accept
such a
the fact
relief.
that I don't know everything, then I can't leave space to learn something new. If I'm sitting here with the belief that I know what I know and how I know it and when I got it, I'm going to leave that situation knowing what I knew. But if I walk in with the accurate observation that, you know what, I don't know everything, and I'm gifted this emotional energy system, which is an infallible guidance system. And so every time my emotions go to a negative level, I can instantly know with 100% certainty that the pictures my mind is showing and the interpretations I'm creating of those pictures are off the mark. That's the same thing that I believe Anthony DeMello is talking about when he says, I'm an ass.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody
It's a
tells
great
me I'm
relief.
wrong. And I go, okay, of course I'm wrong. Well, what do you expect from an ass? Then I don't have to fight for my being right. I don't have to argue with anybody about anything. If somebody wants to have a different opinion than me, it's perfectly okay. It doesn't disturb my peace at all. That's how I interpret that writing.
Good. Thank you.
All right, so I will remind us that we come from love. We're made of this stuff we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. And I will mute you, Susan, and turn on the second hour, which is going to be a replay of a show from 2011 where a woman named Lynn called in and did a worksheet process. I will thank you all for being here and invite you back for the next 2